Yeah, Nova.gov uses this CMS called Kentico,
Okay.
and so one of the things I'm doing, I'll just yeah, these guys. So, um, yeah, they're a pretty nice CMS as far as they go. I think the thing about CMSs is which one ticks you off the least. Yeah,
Yeah.
this one actually does a respectable job. So, I
When
know
you
people in
use
my
it,
office.
does it make you want to write your own?
So yes and no. It is based on web forms, and it is quite weird in that way. But it's got a pretty beefy back end for doing a lot of stuff, which I like, and is good for our content manager types. The other thing that's good is that they've been investing heavily in moving towards MVC as a development model. So instead of having to write stuff in web forms, because dear God, you at least have the possibility of writing this on GitHub. MVC. They have an open source MVC project on GitHub. There we go. Yeah. So anyway, you can download this, and basically what happens is you would create a project in Visual Studio where you'd add. I haven't added one yet, but you have your CMS website. So this is your backend, the CMS, and then you would add an MVC site down here, and that would have a reference to your CMS, so it could get a lot of their internal APIs, and then you could consume the content your CMS backend generates
That's pretty neat.
as a service. And so that way you can use all your nice modern Razor stuff and whatnot. So one thing we're doing right now is, let me see if I can show. So we just did, this is my local dev instance. And if I go to, this is my local instance of NOLA.gov, which is bombing right now. So one of the things that's interesting about how they work is that they use a lot of the backend is actually very database centric. Like these guys seem like they're really DBAs. So if you look at like so how um, they recently, after a lot of people clamored about it, created a C# API for accessing a lot of their database stuff. But frankly, as an ORM, it's kind of lame. It's very string based. Like you have to call things by class names and field names and stuff like that. And so if you don't know, and it's all database field names, you don't know what things are called, it's
Was this
not going to
like
give you any code hinting.
built in like the early 2000s or something?
It was, and they've done a lot of stuff with it since. But yeah, so check this out. So right now, we've got a bombing. This is from the old version of the site. Uh, this SQL query. Now, one of the things the upgrade did was it rearranged a lot of database tables. So one of these things here is so like this view table doesn't exist anymore.
Gotcha.
They've rearranged and taken some columns and put them elsewhere and consolidated a lot of things. So, all right, well, yeah, sure, I could go into the CMS backend and their little web thing, enter a new SQL. And this is actually stored, this whole query is stored as a string in the database. They must feel fairly confident about their,
Security.
yeah, escaping and scrubbing.
Yeah.
And they do have some stuff, but it's like, at the same time, none of those are foolproof, no escape system is ever foolproof.
Yeah. They
So
have one developer and 30 DBAs on the project.
yes, something like, it really does feel like that sometimes. And the way they expect you to do everything. So that's one of the reasons I want to do Entity Framework is even if we have to write, say, direct SQL queries for performance, it's so much easier to write it as Entity Framework where you can think in object-oriented terms and then see what it puts out as far as compiled SQL. And then yeah, if you need to clean up machine code, you can do that. Without breaking your brain, you're still more productive than just writing SQL straight out. So one of the things I want to do is, so because it's my local dev instance, well, so we have a staging and we have production for the city's website. And one of the things is, well, if we upgrade the staging for the city's website, anything I do like to fix this in SQL queries, we'd have to document. And I have actually a stack of paper from the last time my supervisor did this back when he was sort of in charge of this thing. It's a stack of paper, and so they had to thing they did as far as every line of code they patched after the upgrade, and every SQL query they had to change, and all this stuff. And it's like, well, isn't that what Git is for? Isn't that what storage control is for? So I want to try to move a lot of this stuff out of the database and into our file system.
Right.
So that when it's fixed, it stays fixed forever. Also, it's testable. So if it bombs, we know about it.
Right.
So anyway, so I just took our database. I'll fire up LinkPad, show you some of these tables. So this CMS has something like 5, almost 600 tables.
Are we Kentacoing?
Has somebody seen this before?
Mm-hmm.
We just joined.
Seth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, what's up, Ken? Oh, what's up, Seth? Yeah, so here are like our bazillion tables. And everything to do with CMS stuff is prefixed CMS. And here's one, version history. So every single table, all of its columns, have the table name in the column name. So like version history ID. This one doesn't quite conform to that, but let's go to another one that does. Like documents. Documents totally does. So everything starts with document name path, all this stuff. My God. So
this is awesome because it's like, just in case you didn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're doing like a butt ton of
joins.
like inner joins and stuff, you might want to know where things are coming from. But then shouldn't you be good enough to know to rename this so that you know where each column came from anyway?
Yeah, as and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a bit. So they've made some very strange design decisions in this.
I mean, you also consider that each of the name of the tables also has a prefix.
Yep.
So you think you would know what you're doing.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough, fair play.
Yeah. Work. Anyway, so I've been doing a lot of work like fixing the more useful ones. So one of the things I did was I just went through the wizard that Visual Studio has to reverse engineer an entity framework context from that. So I went and created NOLA context. Everything's named NOLA here. Okay. And for the most part, I just commented out all of the DB sets except for a couple. And so this way I can start kind of figuring out workflows. I mean, 90% of this we don't need anyway, because we're not going to use, widget categories and workflows. And like, one thing that's cool about Kineko is it does everything under the sun. But for development, we don't need most of this crap. So whatever.
Okay.
So just sort of expose things as units of work. So like, I need documents because documents are useful. Apparently, tree nodes are the way you get most content in here. They have this idea of a hierarchical tree, and usually it's in the backend GUI. It's actually just a hierarchical tree on like a left-hand column over here. So I went in and like renamed a lot of stuff, so like tree nodes. I went in, and did a lot of like annotation on this stuff, and so I can give things sane names, because George has enforced on me the value of good variable names so much that it's become compulsive. Anyway, so right now, a lot of this was just like setting this up and kind of making heads or tails of this stuff, because with 600 tables, I've been pouring through the Kineko documentation, figuring stuff out. And eventually I just created a utility class called repeater queries. So this is actually where I'm trying to recreate that bombed SQL query in an entity framework, because doing functional programming is so much faster.
Do you have any tests that you're testing this, or are you just running it?
I have not. I haven't wired it up yet. Yeah, but that's where I'm at right now. Is I have this ASCX file. So this is actually the web control. that it uses. So I'm actually having to figure out how to create a code behind, because I've never created a code behind in my life. So learning all this really antiquated stuff. But what's cool about this is being able to write something like this is later on, if we move to MVC, which is still an open question, we've got this here. And if not, well, at least we're not, say, injecting into chunks of markup this weird magical stuff that comes from somewhere. We have these like eval calls, and this is like a Kentico thing.
That's
Yeah. Although they do have
name.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god, yes. Oh, but at least it has generics. You can actually do that.
That's pretty good.
I can at least strongly type stuff.